Hi, my name is Glenn Murphy. I'm one of two presenters of this video series on how to market and harvest your woodlot for profit. My co-presenter is Dr. Reen Visser from the University of Canterbury. In this video, we will look at a case study of small-scale plantation forestry on a Northland property which is now halfway through its first harvest cycle. The financial results so far show that small-scale plantation forestry can be a very profitable exercise on the right real estate and given good planning. The woodlot owner, Ian Page, is a retired forester. He will tell us about his woodlot harvesting experiences, about lessons that he has learned, and about recommendations he would make to other owners contemplating the harvesting of their woodlot. Ian, can you give us some background information about your property and your woodlots?
Okay, well, the property's 160 odd hectares of rather poor Northland hill country, about 10% in fertile flats, but the rest is pretty steep hill, Maruru clay, subject to summer droughts being on the east coast. Close to a good county road or a district road, which is an advantage. 15 k's from Whangarei, but that's not the market. The market is Marsden Point, so we're more like 45, 50 k's from the export market anyway. We ended up planting 40 hectares out of the 160. We have about 60 hectares of indigenous forest, very, very steep country. The 40 hectares of pine was on the eroding pasture land, or areas that had become gorse infested, and the best pasture land we reserved. We made very certain that each planting area was adjacent to the main ridge of the farm. We didn't want anything out on the end of long spurs that we had to put roads out to, so we managed to keep our engineering costs down. Our whole farm now is in a Queen Elizabeth II covenant, a whole of title covenant, and one of the clauses of that covenant is that all future owners must use the proceeds from the plantations on the property.
Harvesting of the Tahiri farm forest began in 2010. By 2019, just under half of the pine estate had been logged in 6 operations. The average operational area was 3.1 hectares, ranging from 1.3 to 5.9 hectares. The first 2 operations, rectangles and slip trees, were on easy to occasionally difficult tractor terrain, which was close to public roads. Existing farm roads were adequate for logging trucks after minimal upgrading. Felling was manual, carried out by a man with a chainsaw. Extraction was by a rubber-tired skidder. Log making was manual, and logs were loaded onto conventional trucks with an excavator loader. The third operation, Red Barrel, was on slightly more difficult terrain. Substantial upgrading of approximately 1.2 kilometres of farm tracks was required to provide access for logging trucks. Felling and log making were manual. Extraction was by a rubber-tired skidder or a tractor with a towed arch. Logs were loaded by excavator loaders onto logging trucks. Engineering costs for this site were high, but the on-farm road was used for harvesting the 4th site and will be used again in the future for at least 2 more operations. The woodlot owner commented that not all of the new roading costs should be borne by the forest operation, since these new roads have made his farming activities easier all year round. The 4th, 5th and 6th operations, gorse slip, basin, and bent fish were on more difficult terrain that included very steep but short slopes. Because of the QE2 trust covenant on the property, the owners also wanted a greater focus on landscape values and overall harvesting aesthetics. These operations shifted from manual to mechanised felling and log making, and more innovative approaches were required for the log extraction, site layout, and trucking activities. Here is what Ian had to say about the harvesting crew that was used for harvesting the last 3 sites.
Health and safety is fantastic, extremely experienced crew. They can all do everybody else's job. They talk to each other all day long through their radios. Very disciplined work patterns, and and very, very innovative. As it says in there, his felling machine, which is a 30-ton digger with a felling head. They fitted a winch into the engine compartment that carries a 12mm man-made fibre rope, extremely light, high breaking strain rope, easily handled. And they can use that winch to pull trees away from bush edges, so in other words, assisted manual felling if they can't actually get at them. And then that winch can pull the whole tree up to the point where the grapple can start shoveling. So it makes for a very, very versatile machine. But I think his real coup came with the forwarding. Forwarders, big thing now in New Zealand, but you pay $1.5 million for a forwarder. I think Pete pays about $20,000 for a man forward drive truck, strips it down, puts log things on it, and these little things run all over the place. It immediately allows you to separate your loadout zone from your processing zone. So the processing machine is also highly mobile, so you can have a lot of little slash bars up on top of ridges and things where they're safe to burn. And these little trucks will you only have to bring your road trucks into a certain point because these little baby four-wheel drives just ferry the wood to them. Sure, it's double handling. I'm sure it adds several dollars, probably $5 or $6 to your log and load cost. But I mean, my engineering costs are ludicrously low because I just need the one road, and we just have a central loading area which we take the topsoil off. We've terraced it so we can line up the log grades. As soon as they're finished, I just put the topsoil back and we graze it. It's back in grass in 18 months. And, so yeah, that sort of innovation is absolutely essential. Yeah.
Let's look now at some of the financial aspects of this case study. As Ian Page commented earlier in this video, the market for his logs was the port at Marsden Point, which was about 55 kilometres by road to the south of his farm. Although Ian has information on all of the 6 woodlots that were harvested, we will only look at the last 3 of these. The volume per hectare was similar for all 3 woodlots, ranging between 630 and 680 tonnes per hectare. There were significant differences, however, in the log grades recovered. The basin woodlot had been ultra-high pruned and yielded high percentages of pruned logs. The bent fish woodlot was harvested early due to ongoing wind throw problems with the stand resulting from a storm event in 2007. Low pruned log yields and high yields of lower grades resulted. Log prices were also the best during the harvest of the basin woodlot. So for these 3 woodlots coming from the same farm, there was a $12,000 difference in gross return per hectare. Net returns ranged from $39,000 to $51,000 per hectare. Log and load and cartage costs were the 2 biggest cost items for these woodlots. Engineering costs, or road and landing construction costs, as well as cleanup costs, were relatively low for these woodlots. After subtracting costs, the woodlot owners were able to recover 47 to 53% of the gross revenue from their woodlots. I have one final question, Ian. What would be your recommendations for someone coming up to the time to harvest their woodlots?
Well, if you think you're up to it, do it yourself, because it's no big deal. But a lot of people would be afraid of that, and a lot of people would be very unwise to try. The next step is to find yourself a really reputable forest manager. You do have to make sure you're dealing with somebody who is very reputable and hasn't got a financial interest in any particular destination for the logs. So my advice to anyone coming up to that point would be stay away from those guys that have just suddenly appeared out of somewhere in Asia and are offering you, the end of the world for your trees. No.
The woodlot owners' experiences with harvesting have generally been positive. They have found that plantations on farms can be a very good investment, even when the average setting size is only 3 hectares. Good marketing of their logs, a relatively short distance to the market, and an innovative logging contractor all contributed to this financial outcome. Of great importance to the owners is that they have been able at the same time to meet their overall land management goals. Ian had one last set of recommendations. These were for hill country farmers contemplating investing in plantations on their farm. Having located and planned where they would put the woodlots, he recommended that consideration should be given to establishing those woodlots over a period of maybe 2 decades. This keeps establishment and subsequent silvicultural costs and effort low, allows a learning process, and allows the spread of harvest and mitigation of harvest risk from fluctuating log prices. This concludes video 12 on how to market and harvest your woodlot for profit. In video 13, we will look at a second case study and again discover what experiences the woodlot owner had, what lessons were learnt, and what recommendations they would make to other owners contemplating harvesting of their woodlots. If you have any questions, please direct these to the email link shown below.